On July 29th, 2011, in a farmhouse in Quebec, a 35-year-old woman named Chantal Lavigne lay dying under a tarp. She had been wrapped in blankets, smeared in mud, placed in a cardboard box, and left to roast in a makeshift ritual that would last nearly 9 hours. When emergency services arrived, it was too late. Lavigne had suffered severe hyperthermia, multiple organ failure, and dehydration so intense that fluids had to be pushed into her body through her bone marrow. She was rushed to a hospital in Sherbrooke, but never made it out alive. This wasn't a freak accident. This was the result of a spiritual workshop designed by a self-proclaimed guru named Gabrielle Fréchette, a woman who claimed to channel the mythical spirit of Melchizedek and who convinced her followers they needed to suffer in order to evolve. Fréchette was the leader of a New Age group in Quebec, Canada. Her business was personal growth, but her method was pure esotericism. She offered workshops in Reiki, energy healing, reincarnation, and she claimed to guide others through past life trauma. Her followers were mostly women, curious about spirituality, disillusioned with traditional medicine, or just looking for meaning in their lives. Among them was Chantal Lavigne, an educated mother of two, with a background in business and a reputation for being financially responsible. But even someone like Chantal wasn't immune to manipulation. Between 2007 and 2011, she became deeply embedded in Fréchette's orbit. She stopped seeing friends, she disappeared for weeks on end, and she spent over $40,000 on courses. According to her family, she truly believed that unless she completed Fréchette's training, something tragic would happen to her. She was told that she had been a shaman in a past life, that she was the chosen one, and that pain was part of the process of reviving her past self. The final workshop she attended was called Mourir en Conscience, Dying in Consciousness. It was held in a rented farmhouse in Durham Sud, in the middle of a Quebec summer. On the second floor of the farmhouse, 9 people were instructed to lie down. Fréchette's assistants, Jeanette Duclos and Gerald Fontaine, helped cover each participant in dirt. Then they wrapped them up tightly in blankets, tarps, and cardboard boxes. There was no airflow, no water, and no medical staff. They were left like that for hours, while guided breathing exercises triggered hyperventilation and hallucination. Some participants backed out. One nearly passed out, but Lavigne stayed, believing she had to. And by the time Fréchette finally stopped the ritual, Chantal was left unconscious. Paramedics were called in, and when they finally entered the farmhouse, the second floor was like a furnace. There were vomit stains, feces, mud-covered blankets, and a group of participants who were barely responsive. Chantal was gasping for air, and her pupils were unresponsive. They took her to l'Hôpital Sainte-Croix, where doctors determined her body had been deprived of oxygen and water for a long time. In a desperate attempt to save her, they tried intraosseous hydration, in which they take fluids from the bone marrow and inject it directly into the vascular system in situations where IV access isn't readily available. Eventually, she was transferred to a larger hospital, but hours later, she was gone. The official cause of death was hyperthermia and multiple organ dysfunction. She was healthy before this. She had no medical conditions. She left behind a husband and 2 children. 1 year later, in 2012, police arrested Fréchette, Duclos, and Fontaine. The charge laid upon them was criminal negligence causing death. During the trial, the defense argued that participants weren't forced to stay and that this was something spiritual, not medical. They mentioned it was all an accident, but the court didn't see it that way. The judge called it a wild and reckless lack of concern for human life. Expert witnesses also testified that even small amounts of time in those conditions could be lethal, and participants had been left like that for up to 9 hours. On December 8, 2014, the trial ended and all 3 were found guilty. Fréchette was sentenced to 3 years in prison, while her accomplices got 2 years each. The judge emphasized that the sentence was meant to send a message that hosting dangerous pseudoscientific rituals isn't spiritual growth. It's downright criminal. Even after the conviction, though, things got weird. The three were only in jail for 3 days before the Court of Appeal let them out temporarily. But in 2017, the original ruling was upheld. They were sent back to serve their time, but they only did 6 months before being released. Despite everything, Frechette later claimed that she gradually stopped her workshops. But even though she was legally banned from hosting esoteric events during probation, there's no guarantee she won't start again. Meanwhile, Chantal's family is left to grieve the tragic, unnecessary death. The issue with Frechette wasn't her religious beliefs. The issue was her negligence. She had no safety plan, no medical personnel, and zero understanding of the damage her ritual could do. When looking at a case like Chantal's, it's easy to say, that could never be me. But people like Chantal don't just walk straight into cults. They walk into self-help seminars. They sign up for personal growth. They believe they're healing until it's too late. Professionals say these workshops use the same high-pressure tactics as cults: isolation, fear of missing out, and emotional manipulation disguised as enlightenment. But by the time you realize what's happening, you've already paid, either with money or your life. Chantal Lavigne died trying to better herself. She was told her suffering had meaning, and that pain was part of the progress. But the only thing she gained was an early, preventable death, and a place in one of the most disturbing cases in Canadian legal history.